Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're taking a look at the case of Judy Smith, who disappeared when she and her husband were traveling to Philadelphia to attend a conference, or at least her husband was attending the conference, and she was just along for the ride because they were going to go and sightsee after the conference had ended. Now this happened on April 10th of 1997. It says here, when the couple came to Logan International Airport on April 9th, 1997 to check in for the flight to Philadelphia, Judy suddenly realized that she had forgotten to bring her driver's license. New FAA regulations at the time required that the airlines verify passengers' identities before allowing them to fly. Judy told her husband that she would return to their home to get it and then take a later flight that evening. She caught up with him in the lobby of the DoubleTree Hotel in Center City, Philadelphia, where the conference was being held, apologizing for her mistake and bringing flowers. Next morning, Jeffrey went and had breakfast by himself and told her that it was great, she should go check it out for herself. And then they agreed that she would go sightseeing because she had never been to Philadelphia before. She was going to go to city tourist attractions such as the Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, and they would reunite at the hotel at the end of the day for the conference cocktail party at 6 p.m. When Jeffrey finished moderating the last of his day's sessions, he returned to their room. Judy was not there. He assumed she had returned, changed, and gone down to the party ahead of him, perhaps having gotten confused about their plans. When he went downstairs to check on this, however, she was not there. After going back and forth between the party and the room several times, he grew concerned and informed a concierge who began calling area hospitals. Jeffrey left the cocktail party and paid a cab driver to slowly follow the route of the Philadelphia Flash tourist bus, which Judy had told him she was planning to use for any sign of her. He called his stepchildren in Boston and asked one of them to go to their house and check their answering machines for any messages. None of those options yielded any useful information. Finally, he went to the Philadelphia police around midnight to report Judy missing. And then she was found several months later on September 7th, 1997 in the North Carolina Pishka National Forest near a campground. It says here that the remains were found at a shallow grave. Like I said in a short video, the remains were identified as belonging to a woman between the ages of 40 and 55 with a seriously arthritic knee, which is something that Judy had. And there were several holes and cuts found in her bra, and her bones had markings similar to that, which they assumed meant that she had been stabbed to death. They used the dental records and, of course, the arthritic knee to identify the body as Judy Smith. So she was found many miles away from where she had last been seen. But what's the most interesting is that she was wearing something other than what she had been wearing on the day in Philadelphia. On the day in Philadelphia, she had been wearing clothes, I guess, to be a tourist, but she was wearing an outfit much more suited to hiking when she was found in that location. Police initially thought that Jeffrey may be a suspect, casting doubt on the idea that his wife had even been to the city in the first place and suggesting the story was fabricated. Later, however, the unlikelihood that he could have disposed of her body where it was found ruled him out due to severe health problems. He died in 2005. Now, there were quite a few sightings in Philadelphia city. People thought they had seen Judy in different locations. But apparently there was also a homeless woman at the time in that area who kind of really resembled her, so probably most of the sightings were of this homeless person. And this one apparently resembled her so much that even Judy's son thought the woman was his mother when he saw her from across the street. So it's not strange that a lot of people thought that they saw Judy walking the streets of Philadelphia. Another theory is that she may have been a victim of a serial killer called Gary Michael Hilton, who had left one of his victims in a similar condition near where Smith's body was discovered. And while he did leave the body of one of his victims tied to a tree not far away from the site where Smith's body was found, his known killings did not begin until October 2007, just over a decade after her murder. So that's the same area, different person probably. In any case, we don't really have a lot to go on here. We're going to take a look at this case with the tarot. And in order to do that, we're going to start off with the Urban Tarot deck, which is currently on the table. And for any further questions, moving on to the Tarot Mucha, which is this one. Now, as per usual, I'm just going to start shuffling the deck. As soon as I have about a table full of cards, we're going to stop and take a look. So without much further ado, let's get started. Okay, we're starting off over here on the top left with a card called Art, and it is Temperance, followed by the Seven of Pentacles. In this deck it's called Failure, which is not a great start. And we have the Public Defender or the Queen of Wands right after that. Now the Queen of Wands has a very willful energy, so I see this first two cards over here kind of pointing towards trying to strike a balance. And when I see the Seven of Pentacles over here, it does look like a darkened city, and it kind of has some people running around in the dark. The card itself is also called Failure. Now, Seven of Pentacles is normally a card of watching things ripen on the vine, things that you've planted. So I feel like this is her having some issue with the result of choices made in the past. And it's very interesting to note that she's trying to strike a balance here. Things are running off and then possibly into a gutter. It looks like the paint here is swirling at the bottom there. And this Public Defender or Queen of Wands is, like I said, somebody who's very willful, also in the middle of town, in the middle of life, and just looking for ways to deal with things themselves. So I'm guessing these two first cards are saying, oh, we're unhappy about something, we're trying to find a new balance, and this Queen of Wands is gonna go out there and get this new balance and get things done. So this is a very willful energy that we're in right now, willful energy to sort things out and maybe have some type of wouldn't necessarily say new beginning, because the next card is the Lovers. So we are kind of connected to somebody or something at the very least, but we're also seeing the High Priestess right next to that. And the High Priestess in this deck is somebody who is taking a luxurious bath right there. So it's also kind of like a step back. So this looks like a step back from something that they were normally signed up for. And when I did continue to read on the Wikipedia page, it did say at least one of the friends said that the marriage with her and Jeffrey was a little bit on the rocks. There was some stress there, not necessarily headed for a breakup, but I guess these cards are also kind of pointing towards just wanting to strike a new balance perhaps for yourself. And since the Lovers is still upright, I don't feel like their intention was ever to break away, but more to relax and take another perspective of things possibly. So getting out there and just kind of like taking a step back and reviewing things that have occurred so far. We do see here, next row, Five of Pentacles. So there is some worry here, possibly worry financially, also worrying about things possibly not going the way that you want them to. It could mean that at the time she was worried about not having enough. And this could be enough anything. It could be resources, but in the background you see a doctor with a chart and a person in the foreground who appears to be wearing a medical bracelet, so possibly worrying also about health issues. Now, she was a nurse, so worrying about health issues is kind of what her job was to begin with. But I read that Jeffrey also had morbid obesity, so he was not doing great. So maybe that also caused her a lot of concern. So these may have been things that were on her mind at the time. And possibly there was somebody else at play here, because we see the next card, Three of Swords. It's in reverse, so possibly there is somebody there who is kind of stirring up some trouble. This is a very dramatic Three of Swords. As you can see, there's quite a lot of red there in the tub. It's also swirling towards the drain. There is a razor blade off to the right that appears to have been used for a paint job, shall we say, to keep things family friendly and all that YouTube good stuff. But in any case, so there appears to be some type of issue here with potentially a third person, or perhaps somebody's mind and or heart wandering. Probably the mind, because of course swords are for the words and for the thoughts that suit. So probably there is mostly a mental exercise going on here. And then we have here the Princess of Cups, which is the Page of Cups in this deck, and that is an emotional surprise. Since this is the costume designer, as it says on the card, it could be that it's more of an emotional choice. Like, the designer does what they feel is best. They have an idea and then they set about to make it a reality. So possibly after this initial worry and trying to find some type of temperance, we have a situation where we are trying to come up with something new and just kind of going possibly literally by the seat of our pants and just going with the flow and trying to bring something about that is satisfying emotionally. Of course, this is a Cups card, so I feel like this has quite an emotional background here. The next card we have here is the Ten of Wands, called Oppression. It could be that she felt very much oppressed, or at least that there was a lot of pressure on her that she was having some issues dealing with. And the final card on the end here is called the Aeon, and that is the Judgment card of this deck. And I think this is possibly her feeling judged or trying not to feel judged. So far, I mean, one of the theories that was on the Wikipedia page was that perhaps she just went and wanted some time to herself because of the stress that was being experienced in her relationship, if that friend was correct. And these cards kind of seem to be pointing in that direction. Like, there's just a lot of stress, anxiety, worry, but a wish to make things better by taking action with this Queen of Wands and just designing things as we go along. And we see here a wariness of a certain pressure that they've been carrying and possibly casting off any type of judgment that other people may have for them. So I feel like this may also be, I need to get rid of this stress, I just need to get out of here for a bit, and they might not understand, but this is something that I need. Something like that is coming to mind, that is what these cards are possibly pointing towards. Let's see though, because I think at this point we are still on either April 10th or close to that. There were some sightings sometime after that as well, which were credible, which were outside of Philadelphia City as well. But let's see if we can find out anything what happened between then and how she eventually ended up there on the mountain, so to speak, or in that park. Like, what led up to that? That one flipped. Let's see, this is the Knight of Pentacles. Okay, so we are being very careful here, and we are also being very practical, which is interesting. Something that comes to mind is that her body was found, and there was in total, I believe, in her clothes and a backpack nearby, $167 there. And Jeffrey recalled that she had about $200 on her. So she only really spent and or lost $33 of the money that she had on her, reportedly. But she did manage to travel quite a distance, and apparently also acquired new clothing at the very least, because she apparently walked up there. There does not appear to be any sign that she was already dead by the time she was deposited there. So their theory is that she walked up there herself, and that means she also donned these clothes herself, possibly bought them herself. So this also kind of fits that whole narrative of going out there just to get away from it all, but being very careful about it, being very careful with the resources. Possibly she found some way to, I don't know, trade, possibly, because she only had a limited amount of money on her, and possibly she managed to make some money somehow by selling certain things or making deals with people. I don't know, but in any case, she's being very careful, as we can see here with this Knight, which is very slow and steady wins the race. I tend to say that a lot with that card because it's just such a fitting expression for the Knight of Pentacles, from what I can tell. Anyway, the next card that came out is the Sun in reverse, so we are definitely not doing too well. That is, it may not have turned out to be as light and as simple and as fun as she may have expected, which may have also put her in this Knight of Pentacles mode, like, okay, this is more work than I thought it would be. Maybe she had initially thought to just take a quick road trip and have some fun, but that turned out to be more expensive, maybe tougher than she had anticipated, or there were just a lot of things that happened that did not put her in a very good mood. She may have also started to miss Jeffrey and possibly worry that other people might be worried about her. Some type of negativity is settling in at this point in any case. Okay. We have the Hanged Man, which is kind of on its side and kind of upright. You're gonna have to take a look at this little stack in a moment because there are a whole bunch of them fell out, but we'll see which one we need in a moment. I feel like the way that this card landed, though, is kind of pointing towards her kind of teetering and going back and forth between maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all, and no, I need to keep going because I really need this break. It is leading towards being upright. So I think ultimately her thought that she needed this break prevailed over her doubts and her concerns about this new perspective possibly not being the one that she needed. Now let's shuffle this smaller stack here. These two, okay. We have the King of Cups, and we have here the King of Wands in reverse. Alright, we have two kings here, which is interesting. Now, one of them may be representing her, one of them may be representing somebody else. Could also be a bit of a dual mood, like in the one hand, we have the King of Cups who is very jubilant, I would say. He looks to be in a great mood. He's got everything, all of his ducks in a row. And there's even a fish flying over his head. There's a lot of energy in this card, so there's just a lot of good emotions. Possibly could also mean that there was somebody there who was very good at convincing her to do certain things. We see here the King of Cups right next to that in reverse. Earlier she was represented by the Queen of Cups, so maybe they were now in a king energy, but it was not well spent. So this could be a situation where she runs into somebody who appears to be really charming, really good at making you feel good about your situation, possibly also manipulating you into doing what it is that they want. And the King of Wands in this case is kind of losing out against the King of Cups. So possibly they were convinced to go places, do things that this King of Cups wanted them to do. On the other hand, it could also be that while they were feeling really good about their situation, they also were not doing the right thing. So while they were being very happy and feeling like things were going well, the action she was taking would lead her down the wrong path. We'll see in the next cards which of these is closer to the truth. Okay, we have a card that's flipped. This is the Four of Wands in reverse, so there is disharmony here. So I'm thinking that this may have been the case with two people over here with these two, and that there is a separate person being represented by this King of Cups who may have led them down a path that led them to this disharmony situation. And I'm going to put that over here because there's space down there. These Urban Tarot deck cards are very long, so they don't always fit on the screen. In this case, they've left a little bit of a gap on the right, but okay, that's going to be filled by our Tarot Muchi cards. Anyway, so there may have been some disharmony after a while of this person having misled Judy, possibly, probably intentionally, for their own purposes. But we're only looking at this harmony at this point. Doesn't necessarily mean anything about her physical state. We have a Queen of Cups now. Alright, so this manipulation continues. Maybe that there's now a second person who may have taken over. Could be that this disharmony over here led her to kind of go for the next person that made her feel good about her situation, to kind of clamp onto them, like, okay, this person over here, I don't really like them very much because we went and did stuff and I don't really like the result of that. Hey, here's somebody new. They also seem to be nice. Let's go with them because that's bound to be better than this other person that I'm with right now. Or in the very case, it'll lead me to a better place. All right, there's a lot of cards here. One of them still flipped. Let's start with you. And then we have here, this is the devil in this deck. So we are like, I wouldn't say addicted, but we're being roped into something. I feel like this is literally some type of chain that is being wrapped around us. Maybe that this person came to them with a sob story and they were like, oh, I need to help me because I don't have any money and I need to get here and I need to get there, and can you help me across town or whatever it is, and I'll make it worth your while. Something like that, like being roped into somebody else's problems. Now, I read that she was very likely to help people who were in need, so it could have been very easy for this person to just draw Judy into whatever story they were spinning. In any case, we see here the Ace of Swords in reverse, so that is definitely a bad idea. Some words being spoken that leads to a bad new beginning, new initiative that she is embarking on. And then we have here another Page of Cups. Again, an emotional surprise, and he's looking very combative. I've never actually looked at this guy's face too carefully, but now that I'm looking at it, it looks kind of like he's about to punch somebody. That type of energy, like, I'm gonna come for you. So this is definitely a negative surprise. We are trying to take a step back, but possibly we cannot. The Four of Swords is in reverse, so we're not really allowed to take a break, but we are being asked to sign up for something here with the Lovers card. No, this is a Two of Cups. Well, it's pretty much the watered down version of the Lovers card, so this would be a flimsy attempt at trying to rope somebody in. But I feel like Judy didn't feel like she had much of a choice. Like, she kind of already took the first step with this person, and then they sprung something on them and are like, oh yeah, I don't really want to, but I'm kind of already on board, so I might as well and see how it goes, that type of thing. So they may have revealed something about themselves that made Judy kind of take a step back, or wanting to take a step back, but the option to leave was not there. At least she may not have felt like she could have left. And the Swords, of course, also being something about thoughts and words. She may have felt like she couldn't leave, like, logically speaking. She felt that maybe the person wouldn't like them. Like, all these thoughts may have been going through her mind, kind of like the Eight of Swords energy, like you're stuck in a certain mindset. A mindset of, well, I've helped this person, or I said that I would help them, and now it's kind of biting me in the ass, but I'm going to stick with it, and because I already kind of signed up for it earlier, which is what the Two of Cups seems to be pointing towards. And what happens next? So now we have her in a bit of a situation where she's kind of stuck with this person, and she doesn't really want to be. We have the Four of Wands again. Interestingly, though, this card is called completion. Yes, okay. So now we are kind of coming towards some type of conclusion. Maybe they were pretending that things were okay to try and keep Judy on board. Maybe Judy is trying to help her out and trying to make things as pleasant as possible. But when I first saw the card, I thought that the word was actually competition, which I thought was very interesting, like they're in some type of competition to get things done their way. Like Judy may have been trying to help this person and then be on her way, and this other person may have been trying to keep Judy strung along, like that type of competition. But meanwhile, since it is the Four of Wands, it's like this trying to pretend everything is hunky-dory, basically. For once, it's like a harmony card, so they're trying to be harmonious while also possibly trying to get their own way. Then we have here the Eight of Cups trying to walk away from something, which is kind of like what I was just saying. They're trying to leave here. This cup is called indolence. And it's a bit of a mess because the background looks like a computer or something. Yeah, it's a laptop and there's a whole bunch of stuff on it. There's like tape and there's office supplies. There's empty cups. Empty cans rather, toys, like there's a whole lot of stuff going on here. Somebody's desk of somebody who tends to not leave their computer much but kind of wants to because it would be good for them. That type of vibe is what we're getting from this card. So I feel like this is also Judy, like I said earlier, trying to break away by doing things her way, feeling like she wants to leave but possibly cannot because once again she's kind of stuck there. She may have been trying to tell this person repeatedly that she wanted to go away now. Like, okay, I've helped you this far, and now it's really time for me to go because they're probably going to be looking for me. Maybe she wasn't actually planning on going back, but she may have tried to use that as an excuse to get out of this situation. Like, oh, they might start looking for me soon. Also getting a little bit of a vibe that she may have tried to convince this other person that there may already be people looking for her and that they may know where she is, and somebody may have seen her with this other person. Almost like, if you do something to me, then people are going to know who you are. Kind of like a veiled threat sort of situation. In any case, we have here the Nine of Pentacles and it's in reverse. The Gain card here is showing a similar relaxation vibe that the High Priestess card showed earlier, but this is more of a physical resources lost situation. Now the jewelry that she had, some of it was missing but most of it wasn't, and like I said, she still had $167 on her. So they don't think that robbery was part of the motive of this crime. So maybe there were other resources that she felt like were being taken from her, possibly her freedom and her relaxation or a chance to relax. There's a lot of stress, I imagine, in this situation. So she's being kept awake possibly, or at the very least she's stressing out and not feeling like she has command over her own resources, I feel, because normally the 9 is a card of independence, and in the case of the 9 of Pentacles, it's like I'm independently resourceful, in meaning that you would have a bunch of money or some way to get through something and get around, and she may have lost that ability. We have here the 6 of Pentacles, which is called Success, and it is a charity card. So maybe she got some small windfall at some point, which allowed her to even get there and get the new clothes without spending too much money. This is indeed a small donation type card. As you can see, this person is just kind of dropping a few coins. It's not like a huge amount was made there, but enough to keep things going, I believe. Now, where this money came from, no idea. But let's see what happens next, because I don't think we're at that park yet at this point. Nope. There's a card there that kind of flew off the table. I'll get it in a moment, but I feel like I want to get at least one more card before we get it. So here we have the Emperor in reverse. So somebody is fulfilling some type of important role, but in a negative sense. So somebody is being authoritative over her and possibly trying to lay down the law. And we have here the Star. All right, so we are trying to draw some attention. She may have been trying to do things to draw attention. She may have purposely gone and talked to people while she was out there. I'm reminded of a sighting, reportedly, that she went to shop at a Macy's for dresses, and she apparently told a bunch of people that she was actually looking for clothes for her daughter, and her daughter normally didn't like the stuff that she bought, and the family kind of corroborated that that was indeed the case, that she would buy things and that her daughter would not necessarily like them. So to kind of prove that she was there, maybe some type of attention seeking, I feel, is what is being pointed at here. I'm going to get the card, hang on. Card on the floor is the Knight of Cups, which is the King of Cups in this deck. So we are back with a King of Cups energy. So somebody else is trying to convince her, possibly this may be a third person whom she encounters, whom is able to convince her to come with them. I do feel like this is the last person that they encountered on their journey to their final resting place, but this is again somebody who's very convincing, and this card in particular shows a spiked drink in the background, like he's got her attention, she's looking at him, but meanwhile he's got his hand over near the drink, and in the drink itself you can see a crab, I believe, which is also a nasty surprise. And with this card also in particular, you can see that the background there is fire coming through the door. So this person is so convincing that they're able to draw her attention away from all of the red flags that they have, and just kind of gets her to do whatever it is that they want. So they're very much able to convince her, and possibly at this point she may have been kind of desperate for a friendly person to help her out, and that is why she was so easy to convince. Then we have Justice, but Justice is blind, and the person on the card is a police officer who is holding a sword by the blade, which is not advisable. Also, they are blindfolded, of course, as a reference to Justice, who normally has a blindfold, a sword, and scales. You can see the scales in the background, but I kind of feel like this is representing almost the unwillingness of the police to cooperate initially. They told him, like they tell so many people when they want to report somebody missing, that they have to be missing for 24 hours before you can report a missing person, which is not the case. So if you ever need to report somebody who is missing, you don't need to wait the 24 hours. Yeah, I think this card is definitely a reference to how Justice in general handled the case. And also, I was reading on the Wikipedia that of course, whenever some woman ends up missing, if she had a boyfriend, a husband, or something along those lines, those are usually the first suspects. And of course that makes sense, because as they also said, like 80 to 90% of the time, when a woman is murdered or something, it's usually somebody whom she knows and whom she's close to, and then it's often the husband, the boyfriend, the lover, those types of people. So it makes sense that they would look at Jeffrey in this case, but they may have looked at him longer than they actually needed to. And I think this card is also representing the fact that Justice kind of dragged its heels, and dragged her feet rather, and if they had possibly moved a little faster, things may have gone a little better maybe, or things may have been discovered sooner, who knows. But in any case, that card is pointing towards that. We have here the Ten of Swords in reverse. Ten of Swords, darkest before dawn. It's in reverse though, so I think this darkness lasted longer than it needed to. The card itself is called Ruin. There's a lot going on in this card. I think in general though, it just kind of represents the stress and the anxiety and the trouble. Since I've said this several times already during this video, but the swords represent thoughts and words, so this probably is also following out this Justice card, like things are being spoken that are not helpful, things are being thought that are not helpful, that help bring about this ruin that the card is speaking of. Like the darkness for the dawn phase lasted longer than it actually needed to, I feel. Of course, at this point, we've kind of lost track of Judy here with this reading. She kind of ended her path here, as far as I'm aware. We have strength here on the end, because right now we're looking at the aftermath with this Justice card and this Ten of Swords, and then we have strength, which I guess is Jeffrey's strength in this case, because I read that he also did a lot of work to try and get people to know that she was missing. He spread flyers pretty far and wide, to the point that the flyer that he sent out actually helped solve the case, or at least helped find her, because somebody read about this body being found in this park, and they had seen a flyer that Jeffrey had sent to them, and then they contacted the police in Philadelphia was like, hey, this sounds like the person that you're looking for. And that's how they got a coroner out there to check. And then they went to get her dental records because they noticed that the body had quite extensive dental work. And that's how they were actually able to identify her. Also interesting, of course, that we're looking at dental work here of the lion in this strength card. So yeah, I think we're really looking at the aftermath of the case. Now, are we ever going to figure out who did this to her, though? Because we don't know anything about that. Like, what is the future for this case? Are we going to find out any more information? A couple of cards that fell down here. We have a King of Pentacles and the Two of Wands in reverse. So somebody is pretty resourceful, but they're not planning on making a move. It almost strikes me as somebody who knows something or who has the resources to help this case along, and they either don't want to or they are unable to make this move because of the Two of Wands that's in reverse. Normally you would be planning your trip or planning some type of route, and there isn't one possibly, or they just don't want to do so. So somebody may be sitting on some information or some type of resource that could help, but they aren't going to bring it because either they can't or they don't want to, like I said. Okay, and then we have this card over here. Because there is some type of mental entrapment. Okay, so they may be stuck in some type of mindset. It could be that this person knows something, and for whatever reason, their mindset is not allowing them to bring this to the law enforcement's knowledge. Maybe there's some type of loyalty involved towards somebody, or they're afraid to reveal certain things. Like, it could be that they have all this information, they may have seen something, they may have actually talked to her and seen her with someone, and they may be certain that there is some connection there that would be very helpful, but for whatever reason they don't feel like they can reveal this information. Maybe they are afraid of whomever may have perpetrated this crime. I get a sense that this is normally somebody who would take action or be able to have something done about things, but for whatever reason they're stopping themselves from doing that here. Now I wonder why that is. Oh, we have a card that jumped out. The Fool. Alright, so maybe there is somebody out there who is not quite there mentally. That's the first thing that came to mind when I saw this card. Like, maybe this is a caretaker of a certain person, and this person is not quite mentally healthy, and therefore this person, who may be some type of caretaker, might feel like it wouldn't be right to put them into this situation of being a suspect, possibly. Kind of like, I don't know if you've ever read this book. It's a very short book of Mice and Men, how there's this guy who ends up causing the death of somebody, but it's because he's so mentally stunted that he wasn't even aware at the time that that's what he was doing, or he couldn't be taken accountable or something along those lines. Now, whoever attacked Judy definitely attacked Judy with a knife because they concluded that she was stabbed to death. So it's not like it was an accidental death in that sense. But this line of cards kind of makes me wonder if it is that type of situation. Like, you have somebody who is mentally capable, they know somebody who is mentally not capable and who is responsible for her death, and they have decided that because this person is so damaged mentally that they can't speak up, possibly due to some family relation. I don't know. Let's see what else we can find about this. Let's see what we have. Eight of Wands in reverse. Alright, so we're definitely slowing down. We're not taking any actions. We're also not communicating, because the Eight of Wands is also a communication card. Things have kind of stopped, I feel. You have two 8 cards. One of them is for slowing things down mentally and just not putting ourselves or taking ourselves out of this trap, this mindset. And we're also not taking any action. So we're just kind of like letting things sit. We're letting sleeping dogs lie. And this little tree thing at the feet of this person kind of reminds me of a bonsai tree. This one over here. So it's kind of like they're protecting this little bonsai tree like somebody who is stunted in some way, and therefore they cannot be attacked. They cannot be handled in a certain way that is going to stress them out or something along those lines. And I guess that's also where the buck stops, because we're not going to see them come into action anytime soon. I get the impression that this person is probably considerably older than the other person, so it's also not like they're going to wait until this person who did it passes away so they don't have to physically go to jail, but we do eventually learn who it was. But I think this person is going to pass away before then. Therefore, it's just going to remain a secret, I guess, as long as there's nobody else who knows about it. We're not going to learn who this is. That's kind of what these cards are telling me in any case. So that is what I'm seeing for the case of Judy Smith. It looks like death by misadventure, possibly by somebody whom is not quite all there and was being shielded for that reason. I hope you found it interesting. Make sure to leave a like and a comment. That really helps the channel along. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in another video. And bye-bye for now.